Hey guys, welcome to week 9 of Success Skills. As I mentioned to you guys last week, we are going to take a look this week at Excel. That, just like right before the midterm, we took a look at Microsoft Word. Today, we are going to dedicate that to Microsoft Excel. So looking at some spreadsheet software. This is actually going to be divided into 2 different videos. What I have is I have 2 different documents that I want you guys to work with as we learn about Excel. Just a few things we're going to do with each particular document. So you guys can do one of a couple different things. One, you can try to minimize this video a little bit and try to work with the document at the same time as you're watching this video so that way as I make some changes, you can make the same changes. 2, you can just watch the video and then open up Excel on your computer, or open up the document on your computer and then make the changes that you just learned about. Or you can, as you're watching the video, you can pause it, open up the document, make the changes, open the video back up and watch and continue watching it. So it just be a matter of minimizing and maximizing the document as you go through this video. So either way, I'm going to walk you through those changes. I want you to make the same changes with me, and then maybe save it along the way. Save it as however you want to save it. Save it just somewhere you can find it, because then what I'm going to need you guys to do is then email these 2 documents to me. You can either send me 2 emails, with one with each document in it, or you can send me 1 email that has both documents in it. Does not matter. What you'll do is just want to make sure you save it at the very end, so that you've saved every single change, and then you can just, again, like I said, shoot me an email, and then just like we've done before, if you remember how we did Susie's resume, you will simply just click on the little paper clip when you're going to create a new email. That little paper clip allows you to add an attachment, and you guys will just attach the documents that we've worked through today. Where you can find these documents, you guys can find those on your ATA student portal. They're listed underneath the resources under the Success Skills class. So remember, all you have to do is go into your LAS120 class, and there should be a section called resources, and you guys can find 2 documents. One is called EMP A-1. That's the first one we're going to work with in this video, and then the next video is for the EMP B-2. So I know it's titled kind of weird. It was an old document we used to work when I taught the computers and healthcare class, which now is kind of what we do in Success Skills. It was lesson A, and that was document 1, and then lesson B, and that was document 2. So that's why they're named a little strange. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and walk you through that first document. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you. I want to make sure that I open up the correct document, and this is the first one. So let's see. I want to make sure this, I don't know why this is not working. It's telling me that my screen sharing is paused. That's weird. Let's see. Huh. Sorry guys, for some reason it won't let me share this. I'm guessing you guys are only looking at my face right now. Oh wait. Hopefully you guys can see. Okay, I'm thinking you guys can see my screen right now. So let's see if this is working. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and walk through this video, and I will just find out at the end, I guess, if it's shared correctly or not. Anyway, so hopefully you guys can see what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the Health Professionals Payroll Calculator. So that one, again, was the one that was A-1 on your student portal. So that's what that should look like. So we're looking at payroll calculator. And so as you guys are looking at this, once you guys get this open, if you guys are opening it right now, or maybe just you guys are just gonna open it up a little bit later. So what is happening here? Let's see. Okay. All right. I want to make sure that your all's looks exactly like this. So a couple things on here. So as you guys can take a look at this, as you all are looking at my screen here, just to point out a couple different things about Excel. One, very similar to Microsoft Word in terms of the fact that it's got that ribbon up there at the top. Remember, the ribbon in Microsoft Word was the area up at the top of the screen that has all the different commands and all the different changes that we can make to our document. The difference is here in our document window, you can see that Excel is divided into all these different boxes. These are called cells. So as I click through, these are all the different cells. Excel is very helpful for when you're making a document where you're going to be using a bunch of numbers, when you're going to work with a lot of numbers. So such as payroll. So that's what we're going to be working with here. If you're working with inventory, or like last week we talked about how you can create a budget. So budgeting is oftentimes very helpful because we're working with numbers and money. So that's where you'll typically use Excel over Microsoft Word, whereas Word was more so for documents, creating things that included a lot of text. Here we're working with text and numbers. So anytime you want to put something into kind of a table format, Excel is very helpful with that. And that's what we're seeing here. So you can still use Excel to, create a list, as that's what's done here. We've listed out our employees' names. This is the position that they hold at our company. As you can see here, this is the hours that they have worked this week. I'm thinking, for some reason, I think this is a little bit, you might see some different numbers, and that's okay. I feel like I've changed some of these numbers around, and I may have accidentally saved it, and so your numbers might not look the same as mine, and that's okay. So go ahead and just leave them as you have them. The numbers are not what I'm going to be concerned with. So if these numbers are a little bit different on your all's document, no big deal. Here are the overtime hours that everybody worked this week, and then this is their hourly rate, so what they make, as we are going to then add up what their paycheck is going to look like. So we are pretending like we are the HR department for the Riverwalk Medical Clinic. So that's what we're doing today. A couple things I also want to point out before we do get started. With that ribbon, you can see a lot of very similar commands as what we've seen in Microsoft Word. So we are going to do some adjustments to some of our text. So that's why we have a font group here and an alignment, and we'll do a couple things with this. A few different changes with the alignment is you can align things not just to the left, center, and to the right, but you can also align things at the top of each cell, in the middle, or towards the bottom of every cell. So if our cells were a little bit bigger, you'd be able to notice that pretty clearly, that everything is left aligned, or for the most part, most things are left aligned, and then actually kind of towards the bottom of that cell. But a few different things, here in the Home tab, you can see that there's a number group, a styles, a cells. So when we're working with these cells, we're going to make some different changes. We're going to use a couple of these over here. Let's see what else. And so you'll still see the same tab. So here's your insert tab. Insert is going to be a little bit different because we might insert more things with charts and graphs, as that is oftentimes something that people use to show more so the numbers, but to give more of a visual. Really easy. Excel is super, super helpful, and it helps to do a lot of things for us, as that to create a graph, all you have to do is just select some numbers and then hit what graph you want, and it just turns it into a graph for you. It's super, super cool. So a lot of the same functions that we'll see, but with some slight changes. Here, as I've mentioned, that these are called cells, the different boxes throughout the document window here. These cells are named according to the column letter. So see how the tops of the columns are all divided into different letters, and the rows are divided into numbers. So when you are looking for a particular cell, it will be named according to the column letter first, and then the row number. So like for instance, right now I am in cell H15, and that is because I'm in column H and row 15. That will also show up over here. This is what's called the name box. So if you can see over on the left-hand side over here, I'm looking at the name box. So if you're ever not sure what cell you're in, it will tell you in the name box as well. So throughout the video, I may say, okay, click on cell F11, and I want you guys to know that I'm talking about this cell right here because it's in column F, row 11. What we'll also see today is what's called the formula bar. This up here, what we're looking at where it says that little FX, there's different functions that can be added, and it will show up here on the formula bar. So when we work with some different calculations today, you guys are going to see that formula show up here. If you have a cell that just has some text in it, notice that up in the formula bar, that text will appear in there as well. But later when we start working with formulas, that formula will appear instead of the number. And I'll show you guys what I mean by that. That's actually the first thing we're going to start doing. So what we're going to do is I want to total up, and that's what Excel is going to do for us. Excel is going to do some math for us. So although I want to, you'll see throughout the lecture that I kind of want to be the math teacher that I also am, and I want to teach you some math. So I might accidentally do that throughout here, but the main goal for today is to show you guys how awesome Excel is, because Excel does a lot of math for us and then can be really beneficial as we save this document and as we want to continue to use this document for the next couple weeks of payroll. And not for what you guys will do, but for instance, if I am the HR manager for the Riverwalk Medical Clinic, Excel is super helpful because it will do everything for us and then we'll stay there. So let me show you what I mean. What I want to do here is I want to start first with Peter Bruegel. He is our patient transporter. He worked 40 hours this week, 4 overtime hours, and he works for $16.50 an hour. So what we're going to calculate as we go throughout this document is we're going to calculate everyone's regular pay, their overtime pay, so what they make based on their overtime hours. Some companies pay either time and a half or double for whatever, again, what you've done, based on your, hours that you put in overtime, and then your regular hourly rate. And then your gross pay is going to be just the total between those two, your regular pay and your overtime pay. But what is super cool with Excel is we can do this pretty quickly. So let me show you guys what I mean. So click in cell F11 if you haven't already done so. And you can see right there, we are going to total up Peter's regular pay. So that's going to be his hours that he worked this week multiplied by his hourly rate. But Excel doesn't just want to see 40 times $16.50, although that would be helpful and that will still give us what we need. But I want to show you something even better. If you type in the equal sign. So the equal sign on your keyboard, just click that button and put that in the box. What Excel does is when you're trying to calculate a formula of some sort, Excel will recognize that equal sign as the fact that you are trying to create a formula. If I didn't, so you guys don't do this. This is just if you're working along with me, just keep that equal sign there. I want to show you guys that if I did not have that equal sign there, if I were to either start typing, it's going to just type in the letters, or if I clicked onto another box, it's just going to go to that box. But what happens in cell F11 when you have that equal sign there, now what I want you guys to do is to click on cell C11. Because that equal sign is there, we told Excel we are getting ready to start a math problem and we want to include cell C11 in this math problem. So you could have either clicked on C11 like you guys probably did with me, or you can actually type in C11 too to tell it that whatever we're going to do here, C11 needs to be included. I want to multiply that by, again, Peter's hourly rate. Excel recognizes multiplication by using that asterisk symbol on your keyboard. So that's either at the top of all the numbers, you can see the little asterisk symbol right above the number 8, or above, if you have the little number pad over on the right-hand side of your keyboard, there should be one at the top of that as well. So we're going to multiply that, and again, not just by 1650, we want to show Excel the location. So we want to click on or type in E11. And you'll see that little scrolling marquee, and you'll see there's still a box around C11, and that is because Excel wants to show us the formula and the calculation we have right now. You can see the formula appearing up here in our formula bar, and that is showing us that we have in this cell, we have the formula C11 times E11. So now that we are finished with this formula, you can do one of two things. You can either hit enter on your keyboard, which will take you down to the next cell, or you can hit the check mark here in the formula bar, which is the same thing. Enter is telling Excel that we are finished with this formula and we want you to go ahead and do this math problem. And when we do that, I'm going to click the check mark so it keeps me in cell F11. If you hit enter, you're just now down here in cell F12, and that's okay. We're going to go back to F11. But you should see now, you should have $660, and that means based on the fact that Peter works for $16.50 an hour, and then he worked 40 hours. We just multiplied that to see that this week so far he has made $660. Now, what we want to keep doing here is I want to do this for the rest of these employees. But I'm going to make this a lot faster and a lot easier for you. Instead of having to now go down to the next box and then multiply, here we're looking at Livia now, instead of multiplying this cell times this cell and doing that process all over again for each of these employees, I'm going to make it a lot faster. Notice right now that when I'm selecting different text throughout the document, my mouse is this kind of white plus sign. It's kind of a big white plus sign. That allows me to, when I'm clicking and dragging text, I can select text by clicking just in the middle of a cell. And later, I'm going to show you guys how you can just select some text so when we start editing some things. But go back over to cell F11 if you aren't there right now. What I want you guys to do is move your mouse actually to see where that little black square is at the bottom of the cell. Instead of just being a black line all around the cell, there's kind of a black little box at the corner of that cell. Hover your mouse over top of that. What should happen is that white plus sign that originally is the cursor, is your mouse, should now become a skinny black plus sign. This is really important here because I want to make sure you want to be careful with this. This is what's called the autofill handle. What that means is I can click and hold and drag this all the way down, and it should copy that formula for me. It would do the same for text too. So you guys don't do this, but I want you guys to see what I'm doing on my screen. If I use my fill handle, say if I clicked on the word position over here in B10, if I click and drag using my autofill handle, it is going to copy everything down to where I drag that fill handle. I obviously don't want that to happen, so I'm going to undo. So we want to be careful using this throughout our document. When I select range later, I don't want you guys to use the fill handle all the time. But when you do use the fill handle, you can actually do that for formulas. So let's do that here. So go back to F11. Again, you guys probably haven't gone off of F11 yet, but if you did, go over to F11, where again, Peter Bruegel's formula and calculation is. Again, right now in the cell it says 660, but you should still see in the formula bar that it says that formula where we got that 660 is because we had C11 times E11. But use that fill handle, and I want you to click and hold your mouse and drag that down to cell F20 and then let go. And you should see the numbers that you see here on the screen. Notice that you didn't copy 660. What you copied when you copy a formula is you copy that exact same formula. And here's what's even cooler about Excel. Excel recognizes things based on what's called relative location. When we created that formula up in cell F11, we took that formula, and I'm just going to double click it to show you that formula. Double clicking in a cell puts you into edit mode. So I'm in edit mode right now, and that is there so I can show you. When we made that formula, to multiply the two cells that are in what this cell recognizes is 3 cells to the left, and then we're multiplying it by the cell that's 1 cell to the left. So when I copied that formula, so let me get out of edit mode here. When I copied that formula, say down here, notice that the formula is just that. It's the cell that's 3 cells to the left, and I'm multiplying it by the cell that's 1 cell to the left. Same thing down here. Notice that again, it's 3 cells to the left times the number that's 1 cell to the left. And what that does is that again will mean that it recognizes that because we've told it, oh, I need to get out of edit mode, to do that. We told it to do that multiplication problem. And so that way, when I click using my fill handle, that's exactly what's copied, is the locations, not just the letters, and the numbers. It didn't just copy C11 times E11. It knew that that was the location, and that's what I wanted, and that's how it recognizes that. What's even cooler about that, and you guys can do this if you want to, is let's say next week, I'm going to click on cell C15, You don't have to do this if you don't want to. Again, I'm not going to be too concerned with the numbers. I'm mostly going to be looking for the fact that you did these formulas. But let's say Juan Martinez did not work his 37 hours this week. You know, maybe he took a different vacation and instead he worked less. You know, so say this is the next week and I need to change that. I want you guys to, you know, to see what happens after I change Juan's hours. What's going to happen to this calculated pay over here? So let's say Juan only works 30 hours next week. Notice I didn't double click in the cell. What happens if you just click a cell and just automatically start typing? It's going to automatically replace everything in the cell for you. So I'm just going to type in, sorry, I don't know why it went down. I'm going to type in, oh, it's because I didn't have my keyboard on. I'm going to type in the number 30. And then what happens when I hit enter? Watch what happens over here to his pay. Notice that it went down. And so that's what's cool about Excel is once you save those formulas in place, that as you start changing some things around, the formulas will remain there for you and they will automatically update. That is why we didn't put in that cell, I did not multiply 40 times 1650 because next week Peter's hours might not be 40. I want it to recognize as whatever is in this cell to be multiplied by his hourly rate, so that way if I ever just need to change this number, I don't have to go back and change that formula too, and it makes it tremendously easier. Okay, we're actually going to take a look at another formula here. What I want to take a look at is now we're going to create a formula based on their overtime pay. So we're going to pretend like the Riverwalk Medical Clinic pays double your hourly rate for every overtime hour that you work. So again, without getting too math teacher, I just want you guys to follow along as I create this formula. So go ahead and once again type in the equal sign. And the equal sign again tells Excel we're getting ready to create a problem. What I want you guys to do is click on cell D11. That is the overtime hours that Peter Bruegel worked. We're going to multiply that by double his hourly rate. But I want to make sure that it's just double that box. So let's go ahead and open parentheses. So open parentheses, so you should be able to just hit shift and then the number 9 at the top of your keyboard, and that will open up those parentheses there. And I want to type in 2 times and then click on E11, so that's his hourly rate, and then go ahead and close parentheses. So what we've just told Excel is I want you to multiply the number that's in this box right here, so his hours, and I want you to multiply that by double of this hourly rate. That way, again, I'm not typing in 2 times 1650 because next week, let's say Peter gets a raise, his overtime hours are going to need to be double that number. So that's why we do it based on locations. So once you have equal sign D11 times, and then open parentheses, 2 times E11, close parentheses, go ahead and hit enter. And since Peter worked 4 overtime hours at a rate of $16.50, but he made double that for each of his overtime hours, he made an extra $132 this week. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and use our fill handle again. Again, we want to go down to the bottom right-hand corner, hover over that little black square down there until your mouse changes to that black plus sign, and let's click and hold, and then drag that down to cell G20 and let go. Not everyone worked overtime hours this week, so that's why you're seeing a few zeros. That's because, you know, Juan and Kiko, you know, as you know, some examples here, did not work any overtime hours, so therefore they did not get any overtime pay. But next week, if that changes, you know, notice Kiko worked 39 hours this week. If he works his 40 hours and then goes over that, I can change these numbers, and then his regular pay and his overtime pay will change for me. And then again, if somebody gets a raise, I can always change that hourly rate, but you know, to include that new pay, and all these calculations will change for me, and that's what makes Excel very helpful. The last formula I want to create in here, I want to go ahead and calculate the gross pay, which is going to be a total between the regular and the overtime. We want to make sure we put those together. So let's go ahead and do that. So once again, type in the equal sign, and I want you to click on cell F11, so that's Peter's regular pay, and then plus. So click on the plus sign on your keyboard and then click G11. Don't forget, you can also type in G11 if you find that that's a little bit helpful. I always find that it's a little easier to just click directly on that as making it part of the formula. Then when you guys click enter, whether it's on your keyboard or the check mark box, you should then get a total of $792 for Peter's gross pay. So that is the paycheck that Peter will get this week. Obviously not including taxes and all that fun stuff, but you guys get the idea. All right, and let's go ahead and let's use our fill handle again. Let's go ahead and hover over the bottom right-hand corner of cell H11 and then click and drag that down to H20 so that we can see what everyone's paycheck should look like this week. All right, and those numbers should look something like that, as you guys are seeing here. And so once again, that helps us as we can change any numbers, if we change the hours. So for next week, it looks like, you know, right now we're looking at week 30 for this particular company. But if next week, when it's week 31, those hours might fluctuate. So I can use the same spreadsheet here to see, okay, well, let's say that Juan Martinez, you know, if he needs to change, let's say he does work his 40 hours. So I'm going to change that to 40 hours. And you can do this if you want to, guys. You don't have to do this. I just want you guys to pay attention to the numbers over here as they change. Let's say Juan, our medical records coding technician, works 40 hours, but then also puts in an additional 5 hours. So what's going to happen is his pay changed. His regular pay went up because I had changed it from 30, which was 558, and then when I changed it to 40, that went up to 745. He had $0 in his overtime pay, but because he worked 5 extra hours this week, he made double his $18.63 for each of those 5 hours, and so that means that put him up to $186.30. Adding those two together means that he will this week make $931.50. So again, all those numbers, I can just go in there and change those, and the formulas are already in there for us, and it makes it tremendously easier to work with. A couple other things I want to show you guys here. Let's go ahead and let's make some font changes. Again, I want to show you guys the similarity to what we're seeing in Microsoft Word as well. Here in cell B1, notice that B1 is the Health Professionals Payroll Calculator. That is the title of our document. And let's say I want that to stand out a little bit more. So what I want to do is I want to actually increase the font size for that. So let's make that size 14. Let's also make it bold. And then let's also add a bottom border. So hit that bottom border button, and it will add a bottom border to B1. Now notice what happens. What that does is it takes the text and that puts that not only in B1, but it also takes it over to C and D. What we can do, instead of it just looking, and then my underline that I just added, since it was a bottom border, again, not underline, it was a bottom border, it only applies to the cell B1. So it doesn't underline the whole thing. So I want to show you guys how to use merge and center. I want you guys to click on cell B1. And I want you to click and hold in the middle of cell B1. So using your white plus sign, be careful, don't use your fill handle, as remember your fill handle will copy everything over. But I want you to use the white plus sign here and just click and drag over to, let's go to cell E and then let go. And that just selects that range of cells. By using that white plus sign, you're only selecting that range. So now with cells B1 through E1 selected, I want you to click on this merge and center button up in your alignment group. What it will do is exactly that. It will merge those 4 cells together, making it just one big cell, and then it's going to center your text in the middle of that. So that makes it look a whole lot better. It looks, you know, more uniform now. It doesn't look like we have a bunch of text going over into different cells. This is now one big cell. So when you click on it, notice all of those will select, and it shows that your merge and center button is on. If you ever needed to fix that, you can always turn your merge and center button off and it will undo that. But what I want you guys to do is leave that there, as now our title stands out a little bit more. Unfortunately, I think what it did though, I think it did remove our bottom border. So let's click back on cell B1, which again is now BCD1, and click bottom border. Now when we click out of it, you can see our bottom border is applied to the entire thing. Okay. One other thing I want to do with our font, notice that the word name is the same as the name, Peter Bruegel here. So our column headings here that tell us what each of these columns are don't really stand out as much, so I kind of want them to. So let's go ahead and click on cell A10 and click in the middle of it, and let's select the range from A10 all the way over to H10, and then let go. And again, be careful, don't use the fill handle. If you accidentally use your fill handle, you may have had something like this come up where it just copied the word name over to all of these. So what you're gonna have to do is hit undo, and remember to use the white plus sign in the middle of the cell to select that range. And let's just make these stand out just a little bit. Let's just make that bold. So click the bold button. Okay. And then when you click out of that, that's going to then show that whoever's reading this document, the names to each of these columns. And that makes it look a little bit better. I mentioned to you guys earlier that anytime you click on a cell, if you were to just click once onto a cell and start typing, it's going to automatically replace what's in that cell. Uh-oh. So what I want to do is I'm going to undo that. And if you ever needed to edit, you just need to double click on that cell. So I actually want to correct the spelling of Peter's name. There's no I in Peter. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on that cell. And you see what that does is it puts that cursor in there. And so I can go there, I can use the arrows on my keyboard here and go right there behind the I and delete it. And so now I can click out of that cell and it's corrected there for me. So go ahead and adjust the spelling of Peter's name. And let's see, one other thing I want to show you guys on this document is how to use some of these number formats up here. We'll do a little bit more with that on the next document too. But I want to show you guys, I want you guys to select the range of cells. So again, just select the range, not your fill handle. Select the range of cells between F11 and then F20. So remember that column was dedicated to our regular pay. Our regular pay, I want to showcase maybe to people that are reading this that this is money. So I want to show that this should be formatted that way. So what I want you guys to do is with that selected, click on this $sign up here in the number group. What that should do is it should add a $sign to all of the numbers in that column. And notice that it also puts everything in money format, which is 2 places after the decimal. So it puts it in that format where it's dollars and cents. And that's exactly what that number button does, is it puts it in accounting number format so that it shows everything is very uniform. So it has it to where everything is listed as dollars and cents. What I also want to show you guys is then how we use the comma format. And so I want you guys to select, so G and H, and then go all the way down to 20. So we're selecting these 2 columns at the same time. Since both of those columns also represent money, I'm actually not going to use the accounting number format button here because then we just have $signs all over the place. It might look kind of chaotic. So what I want to use is the comma style. So click comma. And what it does is actually very similar to what we've looked at already. But what it does, it puts everything into dollars and cents, so everything is rounded to 2 places after the decimal. The difference is it doesn't put a $sign there, so we don't have a lot of crowding in our document here. So it shows that whoever's reading this document does recognize that this is money, and maybe everything after it, it does show that that's money as well. And then it puts a little dash here instead of 0, making it look like that they just made 0 overtime, and that's technically what happened. It puts a dash there just showing whoever's reading this that they did not get overtime pay this week. That is because they did not work overtime this week. So it puts it in that number format. It just doesn't put a 0 there for those people. And again, that would change if somebody, and again, you guys don't have to do this for me, but I'm going to go over to Kiko here and I'm going to put that he worked 2 overtime hours and hit enter, and you should see a number then show up there. So there would be something, I'll go back and adjust that. So there would be something that would replace that dash should that number change. Okay, and actually one more thing I want to show you guys on this document, and now we'll do this a little bit more on the next document too, but I want to show you guys you can add and insert cells. I mean, you can insert and delete cells pretty easily, and you can even do that to rows and columns at one time as well. So if for instance, let's say poor Kiko, I've been kind of picking on him today. Let's say Kiko no longer works at the Riverwalk Medical Clinic. What I can do, notice I clicked on the number 16 over here on the side. So I clicked on the actual column, the row number. What you can do is you can either use the cell group up here, you can click delete and then it'll ask you what you want to delete with this drop down menu. Or when you're over here, after I clicked on the number 16, it selected that entire row. What I can do, oh, my mouse decided not to work anymore. I can right click that number where I just selected that and click delete on my shortcut menu here. And it will delete that entire row for me and make sure that that is removed and I no longer have that employee then on that payroll. If I ever wanted to add somebody to payroll, what I could do is, and if I wanted it in a certain spot, what you could do is you can just click on another row depending on where you want to add them. And if you right click and hit insert, what it's going to do is it's going to add it just right above where you were. Either right above or right, yeah, I was right above. So if you right click, if I'm on 14, if I right click and click insert, it puts it right above Janine Fontaine there. So if I wanted to ever insert a row, you don't have to just type in your text at the very bottom. You can add that, and columns as well. You can add that in the middle or wherever you want to in your document. I'm actually going to undo that instead of creating a new person. I just wanted to show you guys how you all can add and remove rows should you ever need to. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and let's save this document here. So I'm going to end this video. There's a couple more things that I'm going to show you guys on the next document. We'll do a lot of the same things on the next document. I'm going to click just somewhere out of it so that we're not on that row anymore. So we'll do a lot of similar things, but your all's document should look somewhat like this. Like I said, numbers, if they're a little bit different, that's okay. I know we did a lot of like playing around with numbers too today, and I did some that you all didn't have to. So the numbers might not be exact. The main thing is the format that we've made these font changes. So adding bold up here, that we use merge and center for our title, and that again in columns F, G, and H, you guys have formulas to represent, the calculations that we did here today. So what I want you guys to do is go ahead and save this document. So you may have to go to File and Save As, and save it somewhere where you can remember it. So save it, to your documents or to your desktop or somewhere where you can access it later. And either you can save it right now and email it to me, or you can hold on to it. And then once we edit the next document in the next video, then you can do the same thing and just attach both of those to the same email, and that would work. So go ahead, and for this week, just that's the first document. I want you guys to just go ahead and move on to the next one.